Hey there, I'm Nick, a former Amazon bar raiser, and in this video, I'll answer the question if Amazon changes the leadership principles they ask in their interviews by level, depending on the position that you're interviewing for example, level 4 position versus level 7 position. And the short answer to this question is yes, they absolutely do. And today I will unpack this in 4 parts for you. Part 1 is I'll cover the leadership principles that you can ignore regardless of your level because Amazon does not ask these leadership principles in their interviews. Part 2 is I'll cover the leadership principles that everybody gets, irrespective if it's low level or high level, but the bar for these leadership principles scales by level. Part 3, I'll talk about leadership principles that everybody would get, but the bar is universal. And part 4 is I'll describe the leadership principles that only high-level candidates can expect to hear. Let's start with the easiest one. That's part 1, the leadership principles that you can ignore and you don't need to waste any prep time for. So think of these leadership principles as a do not enter street sign or no parking street sign. You can ignore these leadership principles. They don't ask them. These leadership principles are frugality, be Earth's best employer, and success and scale, drive, responsibility. Why they don't ask these leadership principles, I've explained in a different video. You can watch it here or here. I think it's here or here. And for the purposes of today, you just need to know that you can exclude these leadership principles from your preparation time. Okay, let's move on to part 2. These are leadership principles that every level will hear, but the bar is going to scale and the higher levels are going to have a different expectation for the performance and the bar they need to cover compared to the lower levels. Let me give you the following analogy. If this is a level 4 leveler, I kind of like the pun, level 4 leveler, then this is a level 7 leveler. Then this is a level 7 leveler. So you can see how functionally the two are supposed to achieve the same thing. They have the same function and the same job to do. But the higher level leveler is obviously much more robust. It has a different scale, different maybe precision, better precision, so on and so forth. So here are the 10 LPs where everyone needs to raise the bar, but the definition of raising the bar varies from L4 to L7. Those 10 LPs are customer obsession, ownership, invent and simplify, write a lot, learn and be curious, high standards, bias for action, dive deep, backbone, and deliver results. The key difference here is scope and impact. At L4, you can be like a small drop of water with a little bit of a ripple effect. And at L7, you can be like a big wave that crashes at the shore. Both are made of water, but both have very different impact. And Amazon deploys different questions to evaluate the different levels for the same leadership principle, to evaluate if you're a drop of water or if you're a big wave, to evaluate if you're a small leveler or a large leveler. To give you an example, let's say if I was evaluating you for the customer obsession leadership principle. In an L4 interview, I could ask you a question like, hey, tell me about a time when you went above and beyond the call of duty for a customer. And then as an answer, you might describe a time when you had to stay up late at night to prepare for a big presentation the next day or a big project the next day for a single customer that you had. And then for the L7 band, I can ask you a question like, hey, in your experience and in your opinion, what's the best way to evaluate the quality of your product to your customers? So both questions evaluate the same leadership principle, in this case, customer obsession, but they do it at a much different scale. To use another running analogy, at the L4 level, you'll describe the experience of a single runner in a marathon. At the L7 level, you'll describe the entire event of the whole marathon, not just the individual runner's experience, but the whole marathon with the logistics, with the rankings, and other macro elements. One final point to make for this cluster of leadership principles is write a lot. Write a lot is a tricky leadership principle where you could, depending on level, describe either one large decision that you got right without data or multiple smaller decisions that you got right. And cumulatively, they stack to the larger decision. So to illustrate my point, I've brought some Lego pieces here so you can either make one right decision with one amount of surface area, or you can make multiple smaller decisions, and when you overlay them on the one large decision, they have the same impact. So I wanted to bring this up because it's categorically different from some of the other analogies that I've made of the, let's say, the level 4 leveler versus the level 7 leveler, where it doesn't matter how many smaller level 4 levelers you stack, they're not going to have the functionality of a level 7 leveler, or doesn't matter how many tiny drops, maybe it does, but on principle, it doesn't matter how many tiny drops you stack, they're not going to come up as large as a wave. Let's say if you hear the question, tell me about a time when there was insufficient data and you had to make a decision based on your gut and instincts, it's totally fine to provide an answer with one large decision or 2, 3, or 4 smaller examples. You will still successfully raise the L7 bar and write a lot in that case. All right, we've exhausted this category of leadership principles. Well, it's time to move on to part 3, leadership principles that Amazon will ask of any level, high level or low level, and where the bar is going to be universal. These leadership principles are actually just one. It's earn trust. Earn trust is a foundational leadership principle at Amazon. The prop that I've brought for this is a key. And I realize it's a ceramic key, but it looks good as a prop. It's so important to have earn trust at Amazon that the bar does not change. From L1, which is the lowest level, to L12, which is the highest level of the Amazon CEO, the bar for earn trust is the same. There's no such thing as, hey, Nick raises the earn trust bar for L5, but lowers the earn trust bar for L7. Does not exist. Any Amazon level is supposed to behave with the same level of integrity and honesty and transparency. Doesn't really matter if you're working on something small or something significantly larger. The bar for earned trust is the same, and earned trust is effectively a table stakes. You have to raise the bar on earned trust. If you don't, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle, no matter how strong you are functionally, no matter how strong you are in a lot of other leadership principles, no matter your vision, your level of genius, you must raise the earned trust bar, and that bar does not change. All right, part 4 is the final category of leadership principles, which Amazon asks of only high-level candidates. And those leadership principles are hire and develop the best and think big. The crux here is that Amazon has different expectations of the problems that low-level candidates versus high-level candidates are going to resolve. Low-level candidates at level 4 and 5, Amazon expects them to resolve problems where the answer is known, and they need to deliver that answer, deliver that resolution, and solve the problem. For higher-level candidates, level 6 to a lesser extent, and definitely level 7 and higher, Amazon is going to give you problems where Amazon does not know what the right answer, what the right solution is to these problems. They're going to expect you as the candidate and as the future employee to tell them what the right answer is. Therefore, there's a clear distinction for these two leadership principles of whether you're going to get them in your interview or not. Let me use a different analogy. Think of it in terms of wearing 2 different hats, being on 2 different teams, if you will. You can either be on team white, where you're not going to hear certain questions, and let's say this is the low-level team of L4s and L5s, or you can be on team red with a light on, where you're going to be asked to display different competencies altogether, which are captured by these 2 leadership principles, hire and develop and thinking big. All right, this is all I wanted to cover today. Now you understand what leadership principles Amazon is going to ask you based on your level. There's 4 categories of them. 1, 3 leadership principles that Amazon's not going to ask you questions on. 2, 10 leadership principles that Amazon is going to evaluate you on. irrespective of your level, with a scaling up or down bar. Category 3 are one leadership principle where the Amazon is going to evaluate you irrespective of your level with the same universal bar. And category number 4 are 2 leadership principles that Amazon is going to ask you only if you are interviewing for a higher level position. All right, now that you know this, you're ready for the next part of your Amazon interview journey, which is to watch this video here next, where I take you on a step-by-step journey of how to land your dream Amazon career in a 7-day challenge. Watch this video here next, and I'll see you there soon.